Welcome back to the deep dive. Usually when we sit down to talk about a State of the Union address, I feel like I need to have a massive pot of strong coffee brewing.
Oh, yeah, and probably a very large spreadsheet open right in front of you.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
mean, historically, it is just the driest night of the political year.
Right.
It's a laundry list.
Mm.
It's usually a whole lot of, I want 3% more funding for this specific bridge in Ohio, or please pass subsection C of the new Farm Bill.
Yeah, it's procedural, it's governance. It's essentially the annual shareholder meeting of the United States. Or, well, at least it's supposed to be.
Right, supposed to be.
Okay.
But today we are not talking about a laundry list. We are talking about what happened last night.
And what a night it was.
Seriously. If you were watching, you probably had the exact same reaction I did, which was, am I watching a legislative procedure right now, or did I accidentally flip the channel to the season finale of some very expensive, very intense drama series?
I think drama is definitely the operating word here. And honestly, if you did have a spreadsheet open for this one, you probably just closed it about 5 minutes in.
Oh, absolutely.
There just wasn't much data to input. It wasn't that kind of speech.
So today we're doing something a bit different for you all. We aren't going to parse the budget proposals, mostly because, frankly, there really weren't many to parse.
No.
Instead, we are going to look at this event through a totally different lens. We've pulled a big stack of analysis for this deep dive. We're specifically leaning on some rigorous reporting from the New York Times regarding the staging and the media strategy of the event.
Mm-hmm. And we've also got some really interesting constitutional analysis on the immediate backlash to certain moments in the speech.
Right. And our mission today is just to answer one simple but kind of massive question. What exactly was that?
It's a totally valid question because the reporting from the Times and others suggests this wasn't just a speech. It was something else entirely. It was a specific type of political survival strategy.
Yeah. No. The New York Times used a phrase that really stuck with me. They called it, quote, spectacle as survival strategy.
Yeah, that's a heavy phrase.
It is. But I want to push back on that a little bit right out of the gate because, every politician uses spectacle, right?
Sure they do.
JFK used TV masterfully. Reagan was literally a Hollywood actor. Obama had the big Greek columns at his convention. So what makes this specific performance a survival strategy? Are things really that dire for the president right now?
They are. And I think that's the crucial context you need before we even get to the mechanics of the speech itself.
Okay, lay it out for us.
Well, you generally don't resort to this kind of high-risk, high-octane theater if you're sitting comfortably at a 60% approval rating. You just don't need to. You do it when you're cornered.
And the numbers are saying he's cornered.
The numbers are absolutely flashing red right now.
Yeah.
We're looking at an approval rating hovering right around 41%.
Wow.
And in modern politics, 41% is the danger zone, especially heading toward midterms.
Right, because everything is magnified.
Exactly. Plus, you have high heat on the economy. People are still very angry about the cost of living. And on top of that, you have this very specific, very ugly controversy regarding immigration enforcement.
Right, the reports about U.S. citizens getting caught up in those enforcement raids, that's been everywhere in the news cycle.
It has been dominating the news for weeks. So you have a president who is statistically unpopular and facing a massive scandal involving civil rights.
Not a great combination for an incumbent.
Not at all.
Yeah.
In that scenario, political strategists usually offer two choices. Option A is the traditional route. You act humble. You apologize.
You pivot.
Right. You pivot to the center.
Yeah.
You try to be the president for all Americans to smooth over the rough waters.
Which is exactly what we saw Clinton do in the 90s after the midterms went bad for him. You triangulate your way out of trouble.
Precisely. But President Trump chose option B. You don't pivot, you double down. You don't apologize, you attack. You turn the State of the Union into a gladiator match.
So the spectacle isn't just Trump being Trump. It's a highly calculated distraction.
It's a total deflection.
Mm.
The goal of this speech wasn't to pass laws. The goal was to rewrite the plot of the movie playing on everyone's screens.
Okay, I like that analogy. Explain that a bit more.
Well, he needed to stop being the protagonist who is currently failing on the economy and fumbling immigration. He needed to cast himself as the hero who is battling villains to save the very soul of the nation.
And I want to make it clear to everyone listening, we are not endorsing this view or taking a political side here. We are just breaking down the media strategy as reported by the sources.
Absolutely. We're looking at the architecture of the performance.
So let's dig into how he actually built that architecture. Because when we say the word spectacle, it can sound a bit vague.
It does.
But there were very specific mechanics at play here. And one thing I noticed immediately was the way he engaged, or rather, didn't engage with the room itself.
You're talking about breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah. Can you explain that concept for us in this political context? Because usually the president talks directly to Congress during these things.
Right. Traditionally, the State of the Union is a speech to the legislature. The president stands up at the podium, looks left at the Democratic side, looks right at the Republican side, and tries to build some kind of consensus.
Like, hey guys, let's work together to pass this bill.
Exactly. The cameras are just there in the room to document that interaction taking place.
But last night felt completely different.
Radically different. Last night, the members of Congress were basically just props. They were extras in the background of his set. Trump wasn't talking to them at all.
He was looking right past them.
He was looking directly down the barrel of the camera lens, speaking directly to the home viewer.
Which explains why the tone was so confrontational. He wasn't trying to persuade the people in the room to vote for anything.
No, he was actively antagonizing the people in the room to create viral clips for the people watching at home. And this leads us to what the New York Times piece highlighted as probably the most effective and frankly ruthless tactic of the night.
Okay, lay it on us.
We need to talk about the stand-up trap.
Oh man, I noticed this happening while I was watching. It felt incredibly awkward even from my couch. But I couldn't quite put my finger on why it felt so manipulative in the moment. Walk us through the mechanics of this trap. How exactly does it work?
It's a classic psychological double bind. If you look at game theory, a double bind is a situation where a person is confronted with two options, and both of those options lead to a loss.
Okay, so how did he set that specific trap up in the speech?
Here is the sequence. The president starts telling a story. And it's not a dry policy story about tax brackets. It's a deeply emotional, visceral anecdote about a victim of violence.
Right.
In this particular speech, it was specifically linked to his strict immigration narrative. He talks about a grieving mother, a lost child.
So the whole room just goes completely quiet. Everyone is listening. The emotional temperature in the chamber is at a 10.
Right. Everyone is focused on this profound tragedy. You really cannot look away. And then, right at the climax of that story, he pivots.
He physically turns his body.
He physically turns to the Democratic side of the aisle, points, and demands, "How do you not stand for this?"
It's essentially weaponizing the applause line, but why is that a trap? Why can't the Democrats just sit there?
Because of the visuals. And remember, this is all about the television spectacle. Put yourself in the shoes of a Democratic senator in that exact moment.
Okay.
You have a split second to decide what to do with your body. If you stand up and applaud, the cameras capture you clapping.
And what's wrong with that?
In the media cycle the very next day, that clip will be used heavily by his campaign to show that you agree with Trump's narrative. The narrative that the border is a war zone and his specific aggressive policies are the only solution. By clapping, you are visually validating his agenda.
Wow. But if you just sit there...
If you sit, you aren't seen as protesting his policy. You're seen as protesting the victim.
Oh, that's brutal.
The camera cuts to you sitting down, maybe with your arms crossed, while the president is talking about a dead child. You look heartless on television. You look like you just don't care about this family's tragedy.
So it completely removes all nuance from the situation. You can't issue a statement saying, look, I mourn this tragedy, but I disagree with your proposed border law.
No, the visual medium doesn't allow for a paragraph of nuance. You either clap for his law or you disrespect a grieving mother.
It forces a binary choice. Join me, or you are a terrible person.
Exactly. And that specific clip, the 10 seconds of Democrats sitting stone-faced when the mother cries up in the gallery, that is the clip that wins the news cycle on social media today.
Because it's so visceral.
Right. It doesn't matter what the policy debate actually is. The visual communicates one simple message to the viewer.
They don't care. It's brilliant, but brutal stagecraft. It creates a reality where the opposition is fundamentally composed of bad people, not just colleagues with different ideas.
And that right there is the core of the survival strategy.
Yeah.
You survive your low approval ratings by making the other guy look completely impossible to support.
Make them the villain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But honestly, that wasn't even the most aggressive moment of the night. If we want to talk about breaking foundational norms, We really have to talk about his interaction with the Supreme Court.
Oh, the tariff moment.
The tariff moment.
Now, before we get into what he actually said to them, can we just set the table on why this matters so much? Because presidents disagree at the Supreme Court all the time, don't they?
They do.
I mean, I vividly remember President Obama criticizing the Citizens United ruling during one of his State of the Union addresses, with the justices sitting right there. So what made this instance different?
That is a very crucial distinction to make. When Obama criticized Citizens United, he was criticizing the logic of the ruling itself.
Right.
He essentially said, I think this decision is wrong, and I believe it will cause huge problems for our democracy. That is standard political discourse. It's part of the ongoing dialogue between the branches of government.
So what did Trump do last night?
What happened last night was a direct challenge to the actual authority of the court to stop him.
Okay, contextualize the ruling for us really quick. What had the court actually done just prior to this speech?
So just last week, the Supreme Court ruled that the specific executive method Trump was using to implement these massive new tariffs was unconstitutional.
Okay.
They didn't say tariffs are bad in principle. They said, Mr. President, you do not have the legal power to do it this way. You need Congress to pass a law to do this.
Got it. So, to use a sports analogy, the referee blew the whistle and said, that's a foul. You can't use that move on the court.
That's a great analogy. And usually the player might raise their hands, maybe argue with the ref for a second, but ultimately they accept the penalty.
Right. The game goes on.
Because that is how the separation of powers works in the Constitution. The court interprets the law, and the executive branch enforces it. But Trump looked at the referees, the justices, sitting right there in the front row in their black robes, and effectively said, I don't care about your whistle. I'm keeping the tariffs.
He told them to their faces he was going to ignore the ruling.
He strongly implied that his policy would stand regardless of what their, quote, legal theory says.
Wow.
And this is, well, in constitutional law, we call this a potential crisis. The entire American system relies on the executive branch voluntarily agreeing to enforce what the judicial branch decides. The court doesn't have an army. If the president just says no, we are in completely uncharted waters.
It feels like a moment of pure dominance, like he was deliberately showing his base, look, I am stronger than the judges.
That is exactly the signal being sent. And it fits perfectly into that survival strategy we talked about. If you are casting yourself as the solitary hero fighting a corrupt system, you have to prove that you are stronger than that system.
Even if that system is the Supreme Court of the United States.
Especially if it's the Supreme Court. He is telling his voters, I am the only thing standing between you and the chaos, and I won't let a piece of paper or a judge stop me.
It really paints a picture of a pressure cooker environment. I mean, the room itself must have felt explosive. Usually these things are so polite, people clap politely, they stand up, they sit down. It's choreographed.
Explosive is putting it mildly. The reporting from the journalists inside the chamber described the energy as being more like a boxing ring than a legislative hall.
Really?
Oh, yeah. You had Representative Al Green getting escorted out again for holding up a protest sign. You had Representative Ilhan Omar actively shouting back at the president while he was speaking from the podium.
It feels like the standard decorum is just totally gone. We're a long way from the days of polite silence and golf claps.
We really are. But here's the cynical take on that. And again, we are purely analyzing the political strategy here, not the morality of it.
Right, staying totally neutral.
That chaos in the room. It actually helps the president's narrative.
How so? You'd think getting shouted at on national television would look bad for a leader.
Not if your overarching narrative is that the opposition is crazy and unhinged.
Yeah.
When he points to the Democrats and calls them radical or out of control, and then the camera cuts to members literally shouting and getting kicked out by security.
Yeah. The visual perfectly matches his rhetoric.
Exactly. It reinforces this core idea he's pushing. Washington is broken, Washington is chaotic, and he is the only figure strong enough to tame the madness.
Wow. So even the protest itself feeds the machine.
Everything feeds the spectacle. The Times piece made this exact point. If you fight the showman on his own stage, you inevitably just become part of the show.
That is fascinating. Now, I want to pivot to one other moment that made my jaw literally hit the floor. And this wasn't even the president talking. This was Vice President J.D. Vance.
The budget comment.
Yeah, the budget comment. He gave an interview right around the time of the speech where he boldly claimed he could, quote, balance the federal budget overnight.
He did say that.
Now, I am certainly not an economist, but I know the federal deficit is in the trillions of dollars. We are talking about massive structural spending on things like healthcare, defense, Social Security. How on earth did he say he was going to magically balance that overnight?
By, quote, finding the election fraud.
By finding the election
Right,
fraud.
right.
Okay, you have to help me with the math here. Because even if you buy the premise that there is massive fraud, which, as an impartial note, the broad data generally does not support, but even if you do buy it, how does catching fraudulent voters generate $3 trillion in revenue?
It doesn't.
Right.
Mathematically, it is completely nonsensical, but it's like saying you're going to pay off your entire 30-year mortgage by finding some loose change in your couch cushions. The scales just do not match any universe. You cannot balance a multi-trillion-dollar budget by policing local voting booths.
So why say it? J.D. Vance is a very smart, highly educated guy. He absolutely knows that the math doesn't work. Why go on camera and make a claim that is so easily debunked by anyone with a basic calculator?
Because he isn't speaking to economists. He's speaking directly to the base.
Ah. Okay.
He is taking two things. The base is incredibly frustrated by government spending and the idea of a stolen election, and combining them into one convenient, magic solution.
It's narrative building again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It reinforces that golden age narrative the administration is pushing. The story is we could fix everything overnight. The economy, the debt, the borders, everything would be perfect if these corrupt villains would just get out of our way.
So it's mythology, really. It's not policy.
That's a great way to put it.
Mm.
It tells a story where the country's problems aren't complex, structural issues that take decades to fix. They're just immediate problems caused by bad people. And honestly, that is a very comforting story for a voter to believe.
It's a lot easier to digest than a white paper on Medicare reform.
Far easier.
And that brings us perfectly to the counter-argument of the night. Because there was an official rebuttal, Governor Abigail Spanberger gave the Democratic response.
Talk about a tough gig.
I can't even imagine.
Following a 2-hour, high-production, high-drama spectacle with a 10-minute speech in a quiet, empty room. Historically, the rebuttal is the graveyard of political careers.
So how does she handle it? Did she try to match his energy and put on her own show?
No, she didn't, and I think strategically that was very smart. Spanberger tried something completely different. She didn't try to out-crazy the spectacle. She didn't try to be louder. She went grounded.
She went boring.
I wouldn't say boring. She went real. She directly called the president's speech scapegoating. Her whole argument to the viewer at home was basically, look at this circus you just watched. He's doing all of this, the yelling, the villain casting, the drama, specifically so that you don't look at your bank account.
Oh, wow. So she's actively trying to drag the viewer back to their daily reality?
She is trying to break the spell of the spectacle. The Times analysis framed this as essentially a battle between two competing stories for the upcoming midterms.
What are the two stories?
Well, Trump is telling a story we can call the Golden Age. In his story, the stock market is up, we are projecting strength against the world, and he is the singular hero holding the line. It's a summer blockbuster movie.
Got it. And Spanberger is telling a story called what? The Price of Eggs?
Exactly. The price of eggs or the affordability crisis. The Democrats are betting their entire midterm strategy on the idea that no matter how entertaining or engaging the blockbuster movie is, eventually the voter has to leave the theater and go to the grocery store.
And when they see the receipt at the checkout,
The movie ends. The reality of their wallet takes over.
that is the central tension of the midterms, right there in a nutshell. It's basically vibes versus receipts.
That's it entirely. Trump desperately wants you to watch the screen and feel the outrage. The Democrats desperately want you to check your wallet and feel the pinch.
But here is the massive catch, and this is what that New York Times analysis pointed out. And honestly, it's something I've been struggling with while we've been talking today.
What's that?
By talking so much about how wild and crazy the speech was, aren't we just playing directly into Trump's hand?
We absolutely are. Look at us right now. We've been talking for quite a while. Have we discussed his housing plan once?
Yeah.
Have we discussed the details of his health care proposal?
No, we haven't, but mostly because he didn't really give us one to talk about.
Exactly. And because we're too busy analyzing the brilliance of the stand-up trap and the shouting match with Al Green and the showdown with the Supreme Court, the spectacle is designed to consume all the oxygen in the room.
So it's a feature, not a bug.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If the strategic goal was to stop the media and the public from talking about the nitty-gritty failures of actual policy, like the fact that there isn't a comprehensive plan to lower housing costs, then the speech was a massive, unqualified success.
That is a really sobering thought. The reality distortion field is actually working. We are sitting here analyzing the shiny packaging because there was simply no product inside the box.
It is sobering. And as we wrap up today's deep dive, I think that is the exact thought I want to leave the listener with.
Go for it. What's the big final takeaway you want people to mull over?
We live at a time where our politics is increasingly becoming indistinguishable from entertainment. We have clear heroes, we have villains, we have plot twists, and we have season finales like we saw last night.
Yeah.
But governance, actual day-to-day governance, is actually incredibly boring.
It's spreadsheets and zoning laws.
Right. It's about sewers and bridges and adjusting tax codes. It's not supposed to be a reality television show.
And yet here we are.
Here we are. So the real question for the listener to think about is this. In November, when people finally step into that quiet voting booth, are they voting for the most entertaining showrunner? Or are they voting for the person who actually knows how to fix the plumbing in the house? Does the television spectacle finally override daily reality for good?
Man, that is the question of the decade right there. And I have a feeling we won't really know the answer until every last vote is counted.
I think you're totally right. We're in wait-and-see mode.
Well, that is a whole lot to process. My head is definitely spinning a little bit, and I'm sure yours is too if you're listening at home.
It was a very heavy one today.
It was. But to everyone listening out there, thanks for wading through all the noise with us today. It is so easy to get swept up in the drama of a broadcast like that, so we really hope this deep dive helped you see the strings being pulled behind the curtain a bit more clearly.
It is always a good idea to look behind the curtain.
Definitely. So go take a walk, get some fresh air away from the screens. Maybe check your own grocery receipt this week and see which of those two stories feels most real to you right now. We will catch you on the next deep dive.